Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. We're scheduled to start at 12 on the dot, and I have started recording. So those who may join in later can kind of check in and follow the beginning of our presentation in their own time. I am conscious that people may be taking kind of lunch breaks or breaks and don't want to be using up too much of your time than necessary. So thanks for joining, those who are here today. I am recording this session, so if you don't feel comfortable having your video on, please don't feel like you have to do that. You can put yourself on. No video if you want to, but it's always great to see faces, so not feeling alone in doing this presentation. I guess I want to introduce our topic today. So we're going to have a chat about the new laws around affirmative consent and image-based sexual abuse offences. I'll also have a chat towards the end of the presentation on child abuse material offences for those who are working with young people under 18 or those who are interested in learning more about how images impact and sharing of these images impact young people under 18. I've hopefully enabled that chat function. So if you have any questions or want to make any comments along the way, please feel free to utilize that chat function. I am recording this session, so I can send a copy of the presentation as well as the video to those who have registered today. All right. The other thing I guess to note before I move on is that the content that we're going to go through can be a bit tricky to listen to process. So please take care of yourself as best as you can. If we're talking about something that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable or doesn't sit right with you, please don't feel like you have to sit through the presentation. Take a break or leave if you need to. I will send out the resources so you can kind of go through that in your own time, as well as my contact details. So if you have any questions, you can then get in touch with me in your own time as well. I'd like to start by I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So you kind of went through this. Again, please make sure that you do look after yourself. Reach out if you do need any support. I'll put my contact details at the end so you can reach out and have a chat to me, or I'll also kind of go through the next few slides, support services that are available if you need to reach out. This is a very optional icebreaker and a little bit of a self-interested one as well. So I'm always keen to hear what people are kind of interested in, either listening to, reading, or watching. If you feel comfortable, please share that in the chat. I really enjoy like watching cooking shows. So if you have any cooking show recommendations, please put that in and I'll add that to my list. I know MasterChef is on at the moment, but I think I've lived a really privileged life and have access to like Netflix, so I haven't had to kind of sit through ads. So I don't think I can sit through any kind of non-paid services. So I'm watching something called what am I watching now? Pressure Cooker. I mean, very like American reality TV, but it's where like a group of chefs are living together in a house, kind of like Big Brother / Survivor, and they have to kind of battle it out to find out who's like the best chef. So if that's something you're into, feel free to watch it. Yes, Christina, I love Baby Reindeer. I binged both seasons, and I think the final season's out in June. So can't wait to watch that. Thanks for thanks for suggesting that. Anyone else, if you feel comfortable, please use the chat to do that. To recommend any other things that you're watching or reading or listening to. So where I work, so I should have introduced myself. My name is Lisa, and I'm one of the lawyers working at Youthlaw. Youthlaw is a free legal service for young people under the age of 25. We're a statewide service, so anyone in Victoria can give us a call, send us an email, or can drop into any of our outreach services. We provide outreach to a range of different Headspace offices around Victoria, and all those details can be found on our website if that's something that you're interested in connecting with us. So this next slide is a list of common legal issues that we help young people out with at Youthlaw. Kind of having a look at that list there, what do you think is the most common legal issue we help young people out with? If you feel comfortable, you can unmute yourself. If not, feel free to use the chat. What do you kind of think that would be the most common legal issue we would help young people with?
I'm thinking fines.
Yeah, great, Tammy. Excellent. Excellent, Christina, as well. Yeah. Yep, LJ. Amazing. Yeah, I'm surprised to kind of get that answer from the group because fines is probably not one of the most common answers given in these presentations, but it definitely is. Fines is definitely the most common legal issue we help young people out with. It's so common that we dedicate every Friday to helping young people with fines. So every Friday we have our Friday Fines Clinic, supporting young people under 25 who have fines and would like to know what options they have dealing with fines. So yeah, amazing, great guesses, everyone. So fines is, yeah, definitely number one. And so the second most common legal issue would be family violence intervention orders, then crime, then debt, then victims of crime compensation and tenancy. These are a handful of common legal issues, but we do support young people with other legal issues. And if it's not something that we can support young people with, then we can make appropriate referrals as well. Again, just to highlight today's topics, so we're going to have a chat about consent, namely the new laws around affirmative consent. We'll also have a chat about sexting, or in particular, the image-based sexual abuse offences. And then lastly, we'll have a chat about child abuse material offences. Though the laws around that last topic hasn't changed, but again, it'll be good to give people that information for those who are working with young people under 18 or just interested in knowing what the laws are that apply to young people who are under 18. This next two slides is a summary of different organisations who can provide help and support for those who may be experiencing the issues surrounding affirmative consent and image-based sexual abuse offences. Part of that package that I'll send out, I'll send a list and a link to download a poster version of this table. So you can kind of keep that, share that with your family, friends, and those who you work with, just so you have that handy as a guide. So this is just a really quick overview of what has changed. So from the 30th of July, the definition or the meaning of consent has been updated. Circumstances where there's no consent has also been updated. There's now a requirement for everyone to be practicing affirmative consent, and the laws around image-based sexual assault offences have also been updated, and I'll go through in detail what the changes kind of look like and what they mean. So why is it important for us to kind of have a chat about these laws? I guess the main aim and the main goal is to ensure that people are able to maintain and have healthy relationships, to ensure that people feel safe, comfortable, and respected. And I guess from like the legal perspective, it's good to kind of be aware of these changes in the law, because unfortunately, if consent isn't practiced properly, it then enters into sexual offences. Really tricky to do this kind of interactive question online, but I guess when people think, or when people kind of hear the word consent, what automatically comes to your mind? What do you think of when you hear of the word consent? Yeah, great. Thanks, LJ. exactly. Active, affirmative, ongoing. Perfect. Yeah. Um, I guess this question is really to draw people's minds to the fact that consent isn't just limited to like sexual acts or sexual activity. Consent is beyond that as well. So consent is really much about ensuring that you have autonomy, you have that power to say yes or no to whatever's happening in your situation. Really, basic example would be like if somebody wanted to borrow or use your phone, you have that ability to say yes or no. So consent kind of can look and have different forms. So this slide here is a overview of different legal issues that may be applicable when consent is or when consent becomes a legal issue. You can see, yeah, those are the different sexual assault offences. But what I would like to, the offence that I'd like to draw your attention to though is that last offence, which is it's called involved in an offence. People may have heard of the term like aiding and abetting. So this is where someone has been seen to be encouraging or helping another or others to commit an offence. If they are seen to be helping or encouraging, they would be charged as if they were the primary offender. So that's probably an offence that not many people are aware of. So good to just to keep that in mind. I also like to have a chat about the age of consent laws. I want to highlight that the laws around this hasn't changed, but it's kind of good to be aware of or be familiar with these laws. The age of consent laws determine when a person is able to legally consent. So the laws are very black and white. If you are under 12, then you can't consent, and any sexual acts with a person under 12 is illegal. Um, when a person or when a person is between the ages of 12 to 15, they can consent, but they can only consent if the other person or other people are within 24 months of their age. It's a very strict rule, and the police will look at the birthdays of all parties involved, so everyone involved, and work out exactly how many months there are between the different people, and whether or not it falls within 24 months. And then when a person turns 16 and 17, they can consent with anyone older unless that person or the people who they're wanting to consent with holds a position of care or supervision. Um, Common examples of those who hold that position of care or supervision would be like teachers, mentors, coaches. So they're really common examples of those people. So we'll move on to that first topic of consent. And looking at consent, we kind of look at consent in two different ways. We look at how the law defines consent, so the legal meaning of consent, and then we'll look at situations or circumstances where the law deems you can't give consent. So we'll look at that first arm. So the legal meaning, so if you looked up in the Crimes Act, the legal meaning of consent, it will have free and voluntary agreement as that definition. The reason why and voluntary is bolded is because that's what's been updated since the 30th of July. It really emphasizes that to give consent, you not only have to give it freely, but you have to do it without any pressures or threats. So you have to voluntarily give your consent. Also clear within the law that a person doesn't consent just because they resist the act, and you also can't take into account a person's previous sexual history or behavior. So that's an example of that would be, a person might have done this act with another, many times in the past. Every time you do the act, you need to get consent. So you can't take previous acts of sexual history or behavior into account to determine or work out whether they're consenting in this situation. So yeah, it flows nicely to that next point, which is consent is ongoing. And really importantly, it can be taken away or withdrawn at any time. I'll move on to now the circumstances where the law says you can't give consent. So this is the official list. So if a person falls within any of these situations or circumstances, the law just says that you can't have been able to give consent. So if a person doesn't say or do anything as a sign of consent, if there's any force or fear of force or harm, and harm is defined really broadly, if they're held against their will, if they're asleep, unconscious, or affected by alcohol or drugs, if they don't understand the sexual act, or if they're tricked about the act or identity of the person. So that's the list that we have, and that's been around for a while, and this isn't the updated list. So we'll move on to the next slide, which includes new circumstances as of the 30th of July. So from the 30th of July, if there's any coercion or intimidation, then consent wasn't given. If there's an abuse of relationship of authority or trust. So this circumstance here highlights kind of the power imbalance between parties or between people. Common example may be that an employer says to an employee, or a boss says to the worker, if you want to have, or if you want this promotion, then you need to have sex with me. If the worker has sex with their boss because they're scared of not getting that promotion, there's been an abuse of relationship of authority and consent wasn't given in that scenario or situation. The next circumstance relates to sex workers. So it says false or misleading representation about payment of commercial sexual services. What that means is that if a person works or asks a sex worker to do a sex act or sex acts with that person, and they either don't pay the sex worker or lie about paying, then consent wasn't given. And then the last circumstance that's been updated is in the community, it may be known as what's called stealthing. But what it means is that if there was an agreement for a condom to be used, and it's either not used, taken off, or tampered with, then consent wasn't given. It's huge to kind of have to hear and read these circumstances. So I might give a couple of a moment to really process that. If anyone has any comments about, after listening to those circumstances, but how that's kind of sitting with you, or if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or put that in the chat. Or if you have any questions relating to any of those circumstances as well, feel free to do that. I guess another question that I can throw out to the group is, after reading or listening to the list of circumstances, do any of those situations kind of stand out as either, it should have been there, from the before the 30th of July, or do you think there should be other circumstances that should be added? Feel free to interact as much or as little as you like. We'll move on to affirmative consent. So affirmative consent is something that we all now need to practice. And I'm sure that, lots of people may have already kind of practiced it in the past, but it is now a legal requirement that everybody has to practice affirmative consent. And what does that mean? So it means that we all need to take reasonable steps, which involves saying or doing something to find out if there is consent, and it has to be done within a reasonable time. Practically, what it means in court is that the courts will now look at what did the accused person do to say, what did the accused person do to find out if there was consent. So there's a greater focus on the accused person's actions rather than what did the victim survivor do to show that they weren't consenting. So that's where kind of the script has been flipped. So the courts and police will now look at what did the accused person do, as in what did they say or do to find out if there is consent. Thanks, LJ, for making those comments. That's really, really helpful and really good to hear. And yes, that's right. I think, just reading the comments, think that the interaction between reasonableness and affirmative consent is definitely going to be challenging for sure. And unfortunately, there hasn't been any cases that have tested either the affirmative consent requirement or the situations where consent hasn't been given. But once we get, a case through to the courts to see how they interpret, I think it'll be interesting to see how that happens. So this slide here is just kind of giving you some examples practically of how you can ask for consent. So it's really about checking in and ensuring that other people are okay with what you're wanting to do. If you had time, there is, so New South Wales have passed these laws before us, and so have created a really great campaign on how to explain affirmative consent to, in particular, to young people. It's called the Make No Doubt campaign. So if you kind of search that in your search engine, New South Wales Government Make No Doubt campaign, it will come up with their website. They've put together lots of little videos, I think 6 seconds and 15-second videos on how to explain consent. So yeah, it will be, if you were interested, you can kind of have a look at that. There is an exception to this affirmative consent requirement. The law understands that people have different communication abilities. And so if a person has a cognitive impairment or mental illness, other than self-induced, then and it substantially causes them to not say or do anything to find out if the other person consents, then a person doesn't have to take those steps. That being said, though, this isn't a defense. It isn't something that a person or people can use to say that they don't have that ability to ask for consent, because police and the courts will still look at the situation and the scenario as a whole. So still looking at how else the person may have got consent, as well as whether that situation would would fall within the other person giving consent or not. So it just because a person may have a cognitive impairment or mental illness that may substantially cause them to not say or do something, you still need to find other forms of giving or getting consent. Hopefully that makes sense. It's always tricky to explain that exception. Please let me know if that was a bit too confusing, and I'll try to explain that again. So this is just a summary of what we went through in that first section of affirmative consent. So we looked at that legal meaning of consent. We looked at the situations where consent can't ever be given. We looked at what affirmative consent means. So you have to say or do something to find out if the other person is consenting. We haven't talked about this last dot point, but it's a really important one, which is sexual assault is never the fault or responsibility of the victim survivor. It's never too late to report. And there are lots of support services available as well. I think we've got a question here. So are there ways of negotiating this exception for neurodiverse folks who might communicate differently? That's, a really great question, and probably a question that if it's okay with you, I will take that away and put a formal answer to that and send that out. Thank you. All right, so hopefully this next part will go as smoothly as I kind of planned in my head. But I have a quiz that I've put together. It's an interactive quiz. So I will just stop sharing in a second, and I will put in the chat the link on how you can join this quiz if you wanted to online. So it's just jumping onto that Menti website and entering that code. And then I will just stop sharing that PowerPoint presentation and we'll share instead that Menti quiz. So this one here. All right. Let me know if, people are having trouble getting in or, yeah, great. Okay, I can see one thumbs up, so that's encouraging. Someone and maybe in, if that's really good. I think if I go to the next one, the next slide here, I can, oh, not yet. think, yeah, I think I've got a couple more thumbs up. That's good. Okay, so I might kind of go into the next slide, which will start our quiz. And if you didn't want to join, that's okay too. You can kind of just follow on the screen. Okay, so the first question is, River is 16 years old and they are at a party. They see Ash from the year level on the couch across the room, who looks to be extremely drunk and struggling to sit up straight. Parker in the year above them is sitting next to Ash and touching them in a sexual manner. Robin and Remy are standing next to Parker, watching and laughing. River doesn't like it, so they leave the room and go elsewhere. Do you think that a sexual offence has been committed? And if so, by whom? Um, Lots of kind of people involved in this scenario. The next slide will still give you that ability to read that scenario. Oh, just gotta get full. Great. Amazing. Okay, I might do enter. So yes, this slide will, or what you see on your screen, you'll still get a chance to have a read through that scenario, and then 20 seconds to answer. So the first option is no, because Parker was not having sex with Ash. Yes, a sexual offence has been committed by Parker only. Yes, a sexual offence has been committed by Parker, Robin, and Remy. Or yes, a sexual offence has been committed by all. Amazing, great. So that's great to see. Yeah, two people were able to answer that correctly. And that's, yeah, hopefully it was clear that Parker committed that sexual offence by the sexual touching, and Robin, Remy standing, laughing, and watching could be seen to be encouraging, and so could fall within that involved in an offence. Question 2, Lucy is 15. Their partner Sam is 17. They've been dating for over a year. They've been engaged in sexual activity together, and they're careful to make sure that they're consenting to their sexual activity on every occasion, and their relationship is going well. Lucy's birthday is in September after Sam's birthday, which is next month in June. So a little bit of maths here. Do you think that a sexual offence has been committed? And if so, by whom? So just to recap, Lucy's 15, Sam's 17 at the moment. Relationship is going well. They're consenting every time. Just keep a note of their birthday. So Sam's birthday is next month in June, and Lucy's birthday is in September. Little players, great. So look at devices. So yeah, first option is no. Neither of them have committed a sexual offence as both of them have consented to the activity. Yes, both Sam and Lucy have committed a sexual offence, or yes, but only Sam has committed a sexual offence. And interesting mix of answers. So the reason why C is the correct answer is because Sam would have turned 18 when Lucy would still be 16 or 17. Can't remember. Yeah, 16. And so when Sam becomes an adult, wait, let me just go back and just double check that. So yeah, sorry, 15. So when Sam turns 18, Lucy will still be 15. And so there's that more than that 2-year or 24 months age gap. And it won't be until September when Lucy turns 16 that relationship is okay again. Okay, great. So question 3, Abdul's 22 and his boyfriend Christian is 17. They've been engaging in consensual sexual activity together. Do you think that a sexual offence has been committed? And if so, by whom? Get a chance to look at the question again. And so first answer is no, neither of them have committed a sexual offence as it's consensual. Yes, both have committed a sexual offence, or yes, but only Abdul has committed a sexual offence. So let's have a look. Yeah, amazing. Great. And that is because when a person's 16 and 17, they can consent with anyone who's older than them, except if that person held a position of care or supervision. So yeah, the correct answer is that first option. It would change if I kind of gave more information about who Abdul is. If Abdul was Christian's kind of teacher or mentor, then that would be a completely different answer. Okay, final question. So Morgan and Alex are partners. They're both 16. They're at Morgan's house one night and Alex keeps trying to initiate sexual activity. Morgan doesn't want to and keeps pushing Alex's hand away and is afraid to tell them to stop. Alex keeps trying and pressures Morgan. Eventually Morgan freezes and lets Alex continue. Do you think that a sexual offense has been committed? So this is a yes/no scenario. I think we've got to wait for the timer to go down. And yeah, amazing, great. And that's hopefully that scenario there was a bit self-explanatory and great to kind of see that even though Morgan didn't physically say no or push, Alex's hand away or anything like that, that doesn't matter. Alex had to ask by saying or do something to find out if Morgan wanted to consent, and if that wasn't satisfied, then that's why that's the correct answer. So well done. I think, yeah, we can kind of see if you answered correctly and quickly, then I think it gives you more points. So whoever is that fire icon, well done. You were the fastest and got the most correct answers. So great job. All right, I'll stop sharing that and we'll move back to the PowerPoint. And I will share our PowerPoint. Right. So we'll move on to that second topic now, which is the image-based sexual abuse offences. This is where there's that non-consensual creation or sharing or threatening to share of intimate images. So from the 30th of July, there was a brand new offence that was created, which is producing or making an intimate image without a person's consent. These three offences, or the offences around intimate image abuse offences, used to sit in what's called the Summary Offences Act, which is the area of law that kind of holds not super serious crimes. It's now moved to the Crimes Act, which is where all the serious crimes are held. The benefit of it being moved is that police used to only have 12 months to investigate these kind of crimes if they sat in the Summary Offences Act. But because they have now been moved to the Crimes Act, police don't have that time restriction to investigate. The other change that has been made is that the maximum penalty has increased from 2 years to 3 years. The definition or the meaning of intimate image has also been updated to better cover persons of diverse genders. The court's power to destroy or dispose of intimate images have also been expanded. So courts are now able to order for intimate images to be destroyed, even if a person is found not guilty, or if they're sentenced to anything that's less than a good behavior bond. Because in the past, that's all that the courts could do, but courts now have a more broader power to do that. And then this last update is to protect young people under 16 from being overly charged with these different crimes. So the DPP stands for the Director of Public Prosecutions. They have to agree to having these charges laid against young people under 16 before they can be charged. So hopefully that layer of protection will ensure that people under 16 won't be charged with these crimes. unless it was really serious, because that's where the director of public prosecutions would come into place, is if the situation required that. Okay, so this is the legal meaning of intimate image. So an intimate image is where a person's engaged in a sexual activity or in a manner or context that is sexual, the genital or anal region of a person, or if a person's female, transgender, intersex person identifying as female, the breasts of that person. So this is the first offence that we'll talk about, and this is a brand new offence. So from the 30th of July, this is an offence that was created. So it's illegal to create an intimate image of someone else without their consent. This dot point is really important for those who are under 18. People who are under 18 can't consent to having their intimate image made. But if you are an adult, if you are 18 and over, you can consent, there's an exception. So you can consent to having your intimate image created. You need to specify how it's to be created though. The second and third offence relates to sharing or distributing an intimate image and threatening to distribute an intimate image or threaten to share. So it's an offence to send or share an intimate image of someone else or threaten to do so. What's important to note about that threat to share that intimate image offence is that it's still an offence even if you don't go through with that threat. So it's an offence to make that threat to share an intimate image of another person. Again, if you are under 18, people under 18 can't consent to having their intimate image shared. But if you are over 18, you can. So there's an exception. So if you are an adult, you can consent to having your intimate image shared. But again, you have to specify how it's to be shared. So person A can consent to their image being shared to person B, and says to person B, you can share it with person C. And then if person B sends it to D, E, F, consent wasn't given and they won't be saved by this exception. So just kind of looking at the chats, it's popping up. Yeah, such a great question about how does this apply to under 18, and great that that's a question that you've kind of raised in this chat. We will have a chat about child abuse material offences, and hopefully that will answer that question on and how that may impact young people under 18. And yeah, so the reason why, sorry, the next one of the other questions was how might deepfakes or AI factor in these provisions? So that was probably one of the key factors. So technology and the improvement in technology, or how technology's kind of grown, was one of the reasons why that first offence was created. So creating an intimate image of another person without their consent is the offence that hopefully will cover off on those deep fakes and AIs. Yeah, hopefully that answered that question. But if not, please let me know and I'll rephrase or try to answer it again. And the other question relating to intimate images relating to children under 18, we'll definitely have a look at that in this next part, which is child abuse material offences. Just back to this sharing of intimate images though, there is a second exception, which is something that's new. So if you have an image of an adult, someone who's over 18, and that image is in a public place, and you either knew that adult or reasonable person would have known that they would have consented to sharing that intimate image, then you can share that intimate image around. I guess what you need to keep in mind though is that public place. So I think, a common example may be that a person may have found an intimate image of their ex-partner on a, revenge porn website. People may argue that that website is a public place, but the person whose image it was that was put onto that website wouldn't have wanted to having their image up on that website. So then that image can't be shared or distributed. So this is a common question that we get at Youthlaw, which is like, what do I do if someone has sent an intimate image without you knowing? We would recommend that you don't keep it, forward it, or upload it. Delete it as soon as you can, and if possible, block the person who sent it to you. And then another question that we also get is, what do you do if you're worried after having sent an intimate image of yourself, or someone has sent your intimate image without your consent? I think, yeah, really important is if you are able to tell a trusted person. And yeah, the other recommendation that we would give is to get legal advice by contacting either Youthlaw, legal aid, or your local community legal centre. And if you want kind of immediate action, there is the Office of E-Safety Commissioner. They have great kind of resources on how they can support people whose image has been kind of shared without their consent. And they have powers to take things down off websites and social media. So it's a good resource to know. Sorry, just another question that's popped up. So are there any defences for art? So yes, there are kind of defences, limited defences for art and for work. And if you're wanting, specific kind of sections to that, I can again take these questions away and provide more detail answers to those questions. So this is a summary of what we've talked about in that second part of the presentation. So we looked at 3 different offences. So producing or creating an intimate image, distributing or sharing, and threatening to share an intimate image. We looked at the definition or the meaning of intimate image, and then also where people can kind of get help in those different scenarios. All right, so this is the last section of our presentation today, which is the child abuse material offences. So this is relating to intimate images that either are created or shared by people who are under 18. So these are kind of the laws that relate to that. But we'll first look at the legal meaning of child abuse material. People may have heard in the past of the term or the phrase child pornography. That phrase or those words have been updated to now be replaced with child abuse material. So child abuse material is any film, audio, photograph, image, computer game, or text showing or describing a person who is or appears to be a child engaged in a sexual pose or activity, and people would find it offensive. So essentially, there's kind of 4 crimes that relate to child abuse material offences. It's a crime to have, to make, to access, and to send. And the maximum penalty is 10 years in Victoria. In addition to that, there's also being put on the sex offenders register, and we'll talk about that a bit later on as well. So technically, if you are under 18 as a child in Victoria, if you make or take an intimate image of yourself and you kind of upload that onto your phone or onto your computer, or you share it with another person, technically you would be breaching or breaking these laws. So you're breaking that, having an intimate image or having child abuse material, making, accessing, and sending. And so as you can imagine, there would be a huge rise in young people being criminalized for really like for doing kind of everyday things that they do, which is sending intimate images of themselves to either to keep themselves or to share with other people. So that's why in Victoria there is an exception that applies to children only. So if you are a child, if you are under 18 and you take a photo of yourself, then it's not an offence. And if you are a child, so if you're under 18 and you get a photo of someone else who is under 18 and they're less than 24 months or 2 years than you, and you haven't sent it to anyone else, then it's not an offence as well. So hopefully that kind of explains what children in Victoria can do with those intimate images. So you can take an intimate image of yourself if you are under 18 and not an offence. And you can also send and receive intimate images of another young person who is under 18, but they have to be within 24 months of your age. And you haven't sent it to anyone else and there's no kind of criminal offence that's been shown in that image, then it's also not an offence. Hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes when I explain that, it can be a little bit confusing. So let me know if that's the case or not. To make things a little bit more complicated though, we also have federal laws that apply. So federal laws are laws that apply, throughout Australia. And if there are laws that differ between the state or territorial laws and federal laws will override state law. And unfortunately, under the federal child abuse material offences law or offences, there are no defences and exceptions. So technically, the federal police can still charge Victorian children with federal child abuse material offences. But it's, really unlikely and probably not practical for them to do so because Victoria Police would usually do the prosecuting. It would only kind of come into play if there were really serious allegations. But the other thing to note is that our state and territorial laws aren't consistent. So if you move from one state to another state or territory, laws will change and will differ. And the laws that apply in Victoria won't apply to other states and territories. So just keep that in mind when you're interacting with other people from different states and territories. Yeah, great comments, LJ. I'll take these away and provide kind of written answers to that, hopefully, if that's okay. But I really like the insightful kind of comments and questions. No, not at all. That's the purpose of our presentations and our training is to draw out these kind of different scenarios and questions. So please keep going and feel encouraged to keep asking and questioning. It's great. So what happens if someone breaks the law? Police may get involved, and if they do get involved, they will then interview and investigate the situation. If they have enough evidence, they will then charge the accused person, and the accused person will then need to attend court. Depending on whether they plead guilty or if they're found guilty, will determine whether they get a criminal record, and depending on the offences that they've been found guilty of or plead guilty to, may then put them on what's called the sex offenders register. So the sex offenders register is a list or it's a register of people who have been found guilty or committed different offences. It's a really life-changing kind of penalty to have. It really restricts what a person can and can't do. It restricts where they can and can't live, where they can and can't work. It prevents them from kind of interacting with any young person. And it can be very onerous. It can be very, it takes a lot to have to report and follow through with the conditions being put on the sex offenders register. If you are a child, the maximum time that you can be put on the sex offenders register is 7.5 years. But if you are an adult, there's no time limitations. So it really depends on the severity or the seriousness of the offences that you've been found guilty of or pled guilty to. Okay, so this is kind of like wrapping up, which is really great timing. Feel free to use your reaction function of the Zoom Zoom app. So if you think it's true, so if you think the statement is true, please use the thumbs up. If you think it's false, please use the shock face reaction. So first statement, Kim is 15, their 16-year-old partner sent them a sexy text. Under Victorian laws, it's okay for Kim to keep it. What do you think? True. If you think true, thumbs up. If you think false, shock face. Yeah, great. Excellent. Yeah, that's right. So it is true. So they can keep that. Next question. Joe is 17. They are seeing Sam, who is in uni and is 18. Sam sends Joe a nude photo. It's not child pornography or not child abuse material because they're an adult. It's okay for Joe to keep it. What do you think? True is thumbs up. False is shock face emoji. Yeah, great. Amazing. Oh, mixed. Okay, so the answer is true. So Joe can keep it. And that is because Sam is 18, and Sam, being an adult, doesn't fall within child abuse material offences. Okay, so next question. Charlie is in year 9 and they send a pic of themselves in bed naked to Tom. They said, share the love with your mates if you like. Tom goes ahead and shares it to some of their friends. It's okay because Charlie gave consent. What do you think? True or false? So true is thumbs up, false is shock face. Yeah. Excellent. That's right. And that is because people who are under 18 can't consent to having their intimate image shared. Question 4. So Eli texts Leo, I'm over it, don't want to go out with you anymore. Leo texts back, take that back or you'll be sorry. Remember those secret pics? I can easily send them to everyone. What Leo is saying is illegal, even if they don't go through with it. What do you think? True? Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. That's exactly right. True. And last question. So Carrie finds a naked photo of a person from an online magazine and replace their face with the face of James, who works with Carrie. They then send it around to their workmates as a joke. It's okay for Carrie to do this. What do you think? It's okay or? Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, not okay to do that. And that really falls within that kind of fake, deep fake porn and relates to that first new offense. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for today. If you want to put into the chat anything that you found interesting or something that you've learned from today, that please feel free to do that. This is how you can get in contact with us if you have any questions. And oops, sorry, wrong one. Let's see. Oh, we also have a survey, which I don't know if I can. Oh, I will put into our chat. But thank you for your time and contribution, comments and participation. It's always helpful. And yeah, I know like this topic can be really tricky and heavy to have to hear, especially during lunch on a random Wednesday. So it's, yeah, if you wanted to share what you're going to do something nice after today, that'll be really great to kind of read and hear. But this is a picture of my dog, Archie. He's 3 now. These pictures were taken when he was like 1, when he was like a puppy. So hopefully this will make you feel a little bit more lighter after today's presentation. But yeah, thank you for your time and participation. Oh, amazing. Pizza. I actually kind of felt like pizza today too, so I might order that tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And if you, yeah, wanted to continue having a chat, feel free to do that. I'll stick around for another couple of minutes. But yeah, thanks
Lisa.
again. No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.